Good morning, everyone. It's day 9. This morning we're going to have a look at a few of the questions that you've put in the box here, and we'll get to them one by one. There's one here that says, please cover the rest of the jhanas. The rest of the jhanas. So we've had a look so far at the first 4 jhanas. These are known as the rupa jhanas, or jhanas of form. There are another 4 jhanas which goes a little bit deeper than the first 4, and they're known as the arupa jhanas, or immaterial states, or immaterial jhanas, states of concentration which go beyond form. They correspond to various bases in which the mind can establish itself. And there's some good descriptions in the Pali texts about these different states. If you'll remember back to the first 4 jhanas we were having a look at, we saw that the Buddha described the descent into these states as a letting go process of removing certain things, and then the mind deepens and stabilizes. Removing sensual pleasures, removing unwholesome states, enter into the first jhana. And then removing vitakka and vichara, initial and sustained thought, we enter into the second jhana. When we're able to remove states of rapture or piti, we enter into the third jhana. And finally, if we're able to remove our attachment, our clinging, our identification to the states of pleasantness or happiness, then we stabilize the mind in the fourth jhana. And at this stage, we're still in the rupa jhanas. At this stage, well, this is the definition, if you like, of samma samadhi, that perfected noble right concentration, when it has its supports and requisites, the first 7 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, when they're in place and these jhanas are being developed, we can rightly say it's samma samadhi. But there is further development of concentration, further samadhi, if you like. Not everybody attains these states. They're more difficult. They're not completely necessary for full awakening, although some beings do develop both full awakening and these immaterial jhanas. Some beings don't. Some beings just attain the jhanas without becoming enlightened. Some beings become enlightened without attaining these last 4 jhanas. Some beings attain full enlightenment and these last 4 jhanas. If your mind inclines towards these very subtle and deep states of concentration, then you'll have to deal with them. These states are also states which can be attached to and identified with. These states can actually become a very strong and stable foundation for a sense of self. The meditator can get into these states very subtle and refined, and the mind gets stuck there, identifying with that experience. It becomes a foundation for the sense of self, the sense of I. Before the Buddha's enlightenment, he practiced these types of meditation. In fact, we know from the old text that he went to see a teacher, and that teacher took him all the way to the 7th jhana. When he had attained the same realization as that teacher invited him to come and lead the group with him. He was a big teacher in those days. The Buddha was a yogi, a meditator. He said, "You've attained as I have attained. Come, let's lead this group together." The Buddha, or the Bodhisattva at that time, wasn't kind of satisfied with this situation. Well, there's still further to be done. This is not the end of things. This is still within samsara. While these states are extremely refined, extremely subtle, extremely pleasant and agreeable, it's still within the samsaric experience. It's not out yet. There is no liberation, complete destruction of defilements. It's just another object that the mind or craving goes into and identifies with, creates as a base for the sense of self. We can attain these different states in our meditation practice if you're skillful enough. They're very subtle. If you were to, the tradition states that if you were to die whilst practicing these types of states, the mind will incline towards that state and become established in this realm. That state or that base is actually a realm. And there are beings manifesting there. Those beings are called Brahmas, or immaterial Brahmas. And there are 4 stages. We can probably explain the cosmology that Buddhist and Hindu teachings allude to. There's basically 3 worlds. The world of the sense sphere, of which we are members of. We have sense bases, so we're manifesting in the sense sphere. There's the sphere of form, which corresponds to the first 4 jhanas beyond the sense sphere. And then there's the third sphere, or third set of realms, the immaterial realms. And these 4 jhanas correspond to those immaterial realms. So there are 3 worlds: Kama Loka, Rupa Loka, and Arupa Loka. Sense sphere world, form world, and formless world. These are all states or bases upon which the mind can get established, where craving can enter and a sense of subjectivity arises. Of course, in the lower states, there's a stronger sense of self. In the higher states, there's a more subtle sense of self. If we happen to get into these states, you're going to have to contemplate them. The Buddha wasn't satisfied with the 7th jhana. He left that teacher and he went to find another teacher. I think his name was Udakarama-putta. I may be mistaken there. The Buddha mastered the 8th jhana, which is what his next teacher was teaching. And again, that teacher said, "Come, Recluse Gautama, come and join me on the high seat. We will lead this group together." And still the Buddha was, well, the job's not done. This experience, this state, this base is still part of samsara. The Buddha's mind was inclining towards exiting the samsaric experience. The only thing that's beyond this samsaric experience is the unconditioned element, nibbana, nirvana. All these states are conditioned. They're all part of the matrix. Beings are arising and passing away. In the lower realms, beings' lifespans are short. They arise and pass away quickly. The sense of self is strong. In the higher realms, the lifespan of these beings or craving that is continuously manifesting as a sense of self is very long. We can talk about these realms a little bit more later on if you like. Coming back to the four immaterial jhanas, or four arupa jhanas, four formless jhanas. In these states, there's no form, there's no physicality. In the first four jhanas, there's still some physicality that's arising. There's still the five aggregates. In the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth jhana, there's only four aggregates. The aggregate of form, or earth, water, fire, air, is not manifesting. There are other elements that are manifesting, but Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayo, these first four material elements, are not manifesting in these later jhanas. We've got a description given to us by the Buddha on what we do practically if we want to try and attain these states. And again, we emphasize that these are not common occurrences. These are, some may even say, beyond the scope of Samma Samadhi, or the Noble Eightfold Path. But the fact is that some meditators do get into these states. And if you get into this kind of state, craving will probably attach to it in some way and cause a sense of self, and therefore you will have to learn how to let go of it. You'll have to note it and know it and let it go to move beyond this kind of condition. The Buddha gives us an instruction on how to do that, how to transition from the fourth jhana into the fifth jhana, how to let go the states of form and enter into the much more subtle, formless realm. The description in the Pali is, and again, monks, with the complete surmounting of perceptions of form, with the disappearance of perceptions of sensory impact, with the non-attention to perceptions of diversity, aware that space is infinite. One enters into and abides in the base of infinite space. Well, let's have a look at that. Completely surmounting perceptions of form. There's no longer any perception of physicality. The mind completely disconnects from the body. Completely, with the disappearance of perceptions of sensory impact. The five sense bases, the physical five sense bases, are completely shut down. There's no longer any sights or sounds or smells or tastes or touch. No physicality is available to our awareness or to our attention in that state of mind. Completely beyond, disconnected from the body, disconnected from the four elements that make up this body, and the four elements that make up the external world. The internal four elements and the external four elements are the same thing. Just that this one we consider my four elements, and those four elements out there, they're out there. But actually, this is just a conceptual idea. In our meditation, we see that actually it's the same thing. This boundary that our vision gives us of my four elements and external four elements is just a conceptual idea. It's just the mind, just how perception kind of organizes ourselves very persistently, so that we think we are autonomous units, so that there's a duality in our experience instead of a unity. Instead of a oneness, there's a this is mine and that is yours. This is internal, that is external. There's a separation, a dichotomy, a duality that's created. And that's still present in the fourth jhana. And we need to be able to, well, we don't need to, if we can let go of the fourth jhana and attain complete removal of the defilements of greed, hatred and delusion, job's done. We personally attain nibbana. We don't need to go seeking further refinement of samadhi. We don't need to go seeking further bases on which to get stuck, if you like. But for some meditators, they go in there. For whatever reason, perhaps they've practiced this kind of thing in the past, and so the mind naturally inclines towards letting go of states of form. So we completely surmount any perceptions of physicality, rupa, and we completely surmount any perceptions that may be arising through the sense bases, sounds and sights and smells, completely disconnected from the rupa. And we're also not giving any attention to perceptions of diversity. So we're not creating a duality or a separation, or we're not creating anything that is different from anything else. There is a unity, there is a oneness. Our experience is the mind and the object being completely the same thing. There's a oneness in our experience. In the fifth jhana, that experience is the base of infinite space. Akasa nancha yatana. In fact, space, or akasa, or the Sanskrit you may be more familiar with, akasha, space. It's the fifth dhatu, if you like. Earth, water, fire, air, space. It's another thing that we can get stuck to, another thing that we can hold on to. It's more subtle than the other four elements. It's actually a base. There's akasa that we can contemplate in our body. There are spaces in here. There's a space within the mouth there, space in the nostrils, those kind of spaces. This type of space that we're talking about here in the fifth jhana is the infinite space, pervading the universe. It becomes a base on which our awareness and wisdom, our samadhi, attains unity. We let go of anything outside of that base. There is only that single object. There's no attention, and we don't give attention to any diversity. There's a singleness of mind. And that base becomes our prison if we don't note it and know it. The mind gets trapped in this state, albeit very pleasant and very enjoyable. You can stay there for a very long time. Infinite space. If we're to move beyond this fifth jhana, if we're to escape this state, then we're going to have to contemplate it. We're going to have to develop our awareness and wisdom to be able to keep up with this state of infinite space. Awareness and wisdom must accompany each level of samadhi in order for us to let it go. If our awareness and wisdom can't keep up, the mind will fall into that state of infinite space and just stay there, using it as a firm foundation for a sense of self, albeit a very subtle sense of self. But there's still an I-ness that's arising in that condition. We need to contemplate. We need to become aware of the perception of the state, or perception of the base of infinite space, and the unification of mind in that condition. There's also other mental states going on: contact, feeling, perceptions, intentions, consciousness. These are also there. The other four aggregates are also arising. We can contemplate these four aggregates. We can step back from this experience, note it, know it, and let it go. Remove our identification with this particular state of mind. And this is what needs to be done if you happen to attain this very refined state of consciousness, very refined experience. There's also in there zeal, decision, energy, mindfulness, equanimity, and attention. Chanda. We may talk about this in the coming days. There's chanda, or will. A kind of wholesome desire to get things done. It's one of the bases of success in meditation, to have strong will. There's energy, persistently activating our awareness in the present moment. There's mindfulness that's there. There's equanimity. Not the pleasantness or unpleasantness, there's equanimity being developed in that state. And there's attention as well. So there's a few mental states in this condition that we can contemplate, that we can become aware of. And you'll need to if you fall into it. For those of you who don't need to worry about it. If you want to practice to try and attain these states, it's good. Go for it. It's a purity of mind there, but it's not completely necessary for full and total awakening. It's not necessary for stream entry. But you may find that you have the ability to get into this type of state. Akasa nancha, infinite space. Ayatana, a sphere or a realm, a base. If we're to move beyond this state, if we want to transition, or if the mind lets go of this state, you'll transition into the sixth jhana, or the second arupa jhana. The second arupa jhana is infinite consciousness, an infinite knowing. In fact, it's the consciousness that's observing infinite space. This is a kind of pair that go together. You have infinite space as the object, and then you have infinite consciousness which knows that infinite space. This is the sixth jhana. You can turn your attention from the object to the knowing, infinite consciousness. Consciousness is infinite. It's pervading the entire universe. It's arising in our experience at the six sense bases. We have little doors here where consciousness arises. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose, tongue, body consciousness, and mind consciousness, constantly manifesting. All beings in the sense sphere. For some other creatures, not like humans, consciousness arises very strongly for them. Their internal bases are more refined than the human one. Take our dog over there. She's got the sense base of a nose. Her nose consciousness is much stronger than ours. She smells things that we don't smell. She hears things that we don't hear. She can see things that we don't see. Her body is also experiencing pleasantness and unpleasantness, touches, things crawling around on her skin. She's a sense sphere being like we are, but her bases are very strong. Maybe her mind base is not so developed as the human. She's stuck in those sense bases, constantly being triggered by very strong smells and sounds. She can see things at a great distance. If we're to let go of this experience of the fifth jhana, we're going to have to turn our attention and observe the consciousness of the fifth jhana. It's also a type of consciousness. We can also look at the various plants on the planet, trees and things like that. They're also experiencing consciousness. Maybe they're just one door. They just have a body door. They're conscious to light. They're conscious to water. They grow. Consciousness is pervading them. I don't think plants have a mind. They don't experience all the dukkha. But consciousness is pervading them nonetheless. Consciousness is pervading the world. We need to contemplate it as and when it arises at our 6 bases of contact, because we have a human body. That's where consciousness arises. But in these deep states of jhana, when we've let go of the body, let go of the sense bases, and the mind establishes itself in infinite space, there's also consciousness of infinite space arising. The Buddha gives us a direction on how to transition between the 5th and the 6th jhana. He says, again, monks, by completely surmounting the base of infinite space, aware that consciousness is infinite, one enters into and abides in the state of infinite consciousness. The description is not a big one, but it's just the turning away from the object and starting to observe the observing. This is the 6th jhana. It also corresponds with the 6th element, or the 6th dhatu. The Buddha didn't stop at 4, didn't stop at 5, 6 elements: earth, water, fire, air, space, and consciousness. These are the 6 elements that we can analyze our world into, if we like. These are ultimate realities. This is the building blocks of our experience. All the rest is just nonsense on top of it. All the rest is just thoughts of me, mine, and I. Craving, sewing together a sense of me, mine, and I continuously. Craving is delighting in any of the objects that it can find, creating a sense of self, finding delight as it does. We need to contemplate this infinite consciousness that's pervading the universe. The universe knows. The universe is knowing. It's beyond what the scientists think it is. It's not just 132 different elements. Maybe there's more elements now. I think when I was at school there was 132. They're finding new ones all the time. The periodical table of... I'm not such a scientist, I don't know. These 6 elements are there. We need to understand, if you enter into this state, the perception of infinite consciousness. We need to understand the contact and the feeling that arises at the mind base where this is occurring. We need to understand the equanimity that's arising in that condition. The will, the decision, the volition, the energy, and the attention. This is also an impersonal realm. It doesn't belong to anybody. Although there can be beings that are arising there thinking that they are. If your awareness and wisdom cannot keep up during your meditation practice, when you enter into this state, then you'll get stuck there. You'll begin to believe that you are this infinite consciousness. You may even start to call it your true self. This is the base. This is the true base of knowing. There are some traditions that take this as the final result of meditation practice. Becoming one with the infinite consciousness of the world, all-knowing, all-seeing, Brahmic reality. There's very venerable traditions that follow this. The Buddha understood this base of self, and he transcended it. He wasn't satisfied with remaining in the samsaric experience. He broke through further. He broke through to the 7th jhana. The 7th jhana, did I mention the 6th jhana? Vijnana nancha yatana. Vijnana nancha. Infinite consciousness. Ayatana. The base of infinite consciousness. Awareness and wisdom will need to keep up. You'll need to have supreme wisdom to create some, dare I say, space around infinite consciousness. Maybe that's a concept which is difficult to perceive. Creating space around infinity. Maybe not so easy to configure it in that way. Anyway, you'll need to let go of it. Stop identifying with it. When you're able to stop identifying with this infinite consciousness that's pervading the universe and taking it as my true self, as my base, then you'll go into the base of nothingness. The Buddha gives a description, and again, monks, by completely surmounting, abandoning the base of infinite consciousness, aware that there is nothing, one enters into and abides in the base of nothingness. Akinchana yatana. Akinchanya na ayatana. The base of nothingness. Even in this state, there's still contact, feeling and perception. The aggregates are still functioning. Well, the 4 immaterial aggregates. The aggregate of body is long gone, disappeared. You'll need to contemplate in this way. Awareness and wisdom will need to match that level of samadhi so that you can let go of it. If you don't let go of it, then you'll manifest there as a being. There will be bhava. In fact, we mentioned the other day that there are 10 samyojanas that are that must be let go of. The first 3 at the path of stream entry, the next 2 let go of with the once returner and non-returner, and then finally the final path of full awakening, the path of the Arahanta. That is one of the fetters that still binds beings to existence, is craving for immaterial existence. If we're still craving for this immaterial state, we're still fettered, we're still bound, we're stuck, still stuck in the samsaric world. We haven't gone beyond yet. We just start dwelling in there. The old Pali books, the old commentarial books, say if you happen to die when you're meditating in one of these states, the mind manifests on that base, the base of infinite space. You stay there for 20,000 years. A couple of ice ages, just dwelling in infinite space. The base of infinite consciousness, the old books say, I'm not personally experiencing this, you get reborn for 40,000 years. The base of nothingness, 60,000 years. Stuck as a Brahma, all-knowing, all-seeing, taking that base as your home. That becomes your abiding. Very subtle, very refined, but still stuck within samsara. Such is the nature of the matrix. So many objects that we can get stuck in. Maybe you got stuck in an emotion state this week. That's nothing. A little bit of anger arises and passes away. You get stuck in infinite consciousness for 40,000 years. Dukkha. You get stuck in frustration for 40 minutes, it's bad enough. Don't talk about 40,000 years. So there are still these mental states that arise. The way that we can create space or remove our identification from this is to note them, know them, let them go. Not everyone attains these states, and so we don't really have to worry about it unless you're a supersonic, immaterial, jhanic meditator. Probably been a Brahma in a previous existence, and the mind inclines towards that kind of state. How do we escape the base of nothingness? There's nothing there. But it's still a little foundation for the sense of self. We move beyond that by letting go of the base of nothingness, the 7th jhana, and we move into the 8th jhana. The 8th jhana, or the 4th arupa jhana, Neva sanya na sanya yatana. Neither perception nor non-perception. An extremely subtle state of existence. Being is still arising there, and yet there is neither perception nor non-perception. We're not quite sure what's going on in there because we can't perceive anything. But there's still a base of clinging there. The mind is still attaining some self there. Still needs to be let go of. Our awareness and wisdom can't practice Vipassana on this state because we can't perceive anything. This 8th jhana is not really a base on which we can do Vipassana practice. The instruction is to exit that state and then review what those conditions were, if we can remember them, after 80,000 years. Again, monks, by completely surmounting the base of nothingness, one enters into and abides in the base of neither perception nor non-perception. Having emerged mindful from this state, having done so, we contemplate the past states that have ceased and changed. And this is the 8th jhana. Be wary of getting stuck in such things. If you happen to fall down that well, you may stay there for a very long time. All these 8 jhanas, or 4 material jhanas and 4 immaterial jhanas, are part of samsara. They're part of the conditioned world. They arise and pass away. They are subject to the 3 characteristics of all conditioned phenomena. They are all impermanent. They are all dukkha. And they are all non-self. Even though there's a sense of self arising amongst all this mess. Even though it's still there, cravings entering into these states and clinging for a fine immaterial existence. Cravings entering into the 4 jhanas as well, craving for material existence. The first clinging for existence, or clinging to being in the first 4 jhanas, is one of the fetters that binds beings to samsara. Clinging to the immaterial jhanas is one of the fetters that binds beings to samsara. These are given up in the path of the arahata. There is a final state. Sometimes it's called the 9th jhana. It's called the cessation of feeling and perception. If one can go beyond the 8th jhana and enter into the cessation of feeling and perception, all defilements are removed. Greed, hatred and delusion are vanquished. Ignorance is removed. Mana is removed. Restlessness is removed. All the samyojanas, all those fetters that bind beings, that yoke beings to samsara, that yoke beings to their sense of self, is finally removed. This state can then be entered into, if you're a meditator, can be entered into at will, if you're fully enlightened. Can experience it here and now, the cessation of perception and feeling. The whole thing ceases and you personally attain nibbana. Nibbana is the unconditioned element. It's the base which is beyond the samsaric experience, beyond earth, water, fire, air, space and consciousness. That stuff's still within, still making up the samsaric experience of beings, still the world. Nibbana is beyond that. Nibbana is what the Buddha broke through to on his night of enlightenment. Everything that was possibly arising was let go of. We can try to practice this. Perhaps we're getting a little bit theoretical when we're still watching the objects of the sense bases arising and passing away, and that's fine for us. Have a look at the greed, hatred and delusion that arises at the eye, ear, nose, tongue and body door before we need to think about the base of neither perception nor non-perception. So, I hope that covers the jhanas in some way for you. Have a look at another question. Is there anything superior, all-knowing power in Buddhism, like the God in Christianity to whom people can refer to when in trouble? No. No God. The Venerable Ananda, who was the cousin of the Buddha and the Buddha's personal attendant for the last 25 years of the Buddha's life, who followed the Buddha around everywhere, listening to his Dharma talks, his discourses. He had a very special mind, the Venerable Ananda. He had the ability to listen and remember to whatever he heard. We should be very thankful to the Venerable Ananda. He was able to remember all that the Buddha said. Later, when the Buddha passed away, it was the Venerable Ananda who was able to pass on the teaching to us. Before the Buddha died, the Venerable Ananda was a little bit upset. Oh, the Blessed One is going to pass away. What are we going to do? He was quite concerned about who should become the leader of the Sangha, of the monks and the nuns and the lay people, upasika, upasaka, the ladies and men who are followers of the Buddha. The Buddha said to Ananda, Ananda, haven't I given you enough? We don't need to replace me with somebody. I've given you the Dhamma. The Dhamma is your teacher. The Dhamma is your leader. This Dhamma is what you should follow. If we're in trouble, in times of trouble, you go to the Dhamma. You don't need to go for a God or any other supernatural being. God dwells within. You can think about that. Humans have managed to conceive of a God outside of themselves. The Buddha's experience was quite different. Here we go for refuge in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. That's what you go for refuge in. If you have complete faith and confidence in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, no need to go anywhere else. Teaching will take you all the way to the end. Of course you can examine, have a look at other teachings, maybe other ways of looking at things can be helpful and interesting in some way. But when we've gone for refuge, we don't need anything outside of the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And the Buddha said, Ananda, what should be done by a teacher who has compassion for his disciples, that I have done for you. There are these roots of trees, these empty huts. Meditate, monks. Do not delay, or else you will regret it later. This is our instruction to you. There are these roots of trees, these empty huts. Meditate, bhikkhus, do not delay, or else you will regret it later. As you start to become older, you start to recognize that time is passing rapidly. The opportunity for stream entry is disappearing moment after moment if we're not observing, if we're not noting, if we're not knowing, if we're not letting go of things. This is all that is to be done. Everything else is just samsara. It's just the rounds of rebirth. It's just conditioned clinging. Doesn't make any sense at all. It's just delighting in a sense of self, delighting in me, mine and I, finding stuff to do that makes us happy in some way. Just delight, moment. A little bit of dukkha, find some delight. A little bit of dukkha, find some delight. A little bit of dukkha, find some delight. Moment after moment. Dukkha in the morning, dukkha in the afternoon, dukkha in the evening. All the way through. And yet still we delight in it. Still we think it's somehow fun and good. Meditate, bhikkhus, do not delay, or else you will regret it later. We've all been blessed in this lifetime. We are fit, healthy, intelligent. Most of us were born in societies, in cultures, in locations that are far removed from this Buddhist teaching. Our families and our relatives don't know anything about it. Our societies don't know anything about it. They're in complete ignorance of the Buddha's teaching. They may have seen a Buddha image or, oh, that's some kind of Asian god. That's about it. There's no inclination to come and explore this teaching. There's no turning of the mind to, I wonder what the 2.5 billion people on this side of the planet are interested in. Oh, we go about trying to find some food, some snacks, trying to find a place to lie down, try to put on some clothes to dress up this meat puppet, make it attractive to ourselves and to others, smiling at ourselves in the mirror. Come on, you've done it. Have a look at that foolishness. So there's work to be done. There's stuff to be let go of. When we recognize our very good fortune, whilst we have been born far away from the teaching of the Buddha, maybe we didn't find it for the first 20 years of this existence, maybe the first 30 years. We do have fortunate enough karma to come across the teaching, and all of you have intelligence enough to take an interest in that. What's this all about? I might walk up the hill and try and do some meditation practice, try and learn about this. It shows that there's an element. There's some element that's been established somewhere, some karma that is there. In our chanting, have a look at that. Beings are born of their karma, heir to their karma, owners of their karma, related through their karma. We're coming across the teaching not by accident. Probably not the first time around. Probably done some training in this teaching before. And then we got born somewhere else in a family that didn't understand or didn't care. There are some people that are born right here. Some people are born in a house that's right next door to the monastery where the monks and nuns are meditating. They don't even go next door and have a look, see what they're doing. You don't recognize. We've been unfortunate to be born a long way away from the teaching. It wasn't easy for us to contact it. It took years, 20, 30 years to find our way home to the teaching again. But all of us possess the intelligence that once we contact the teaching, this is something that requires further examination. This is something that's interesting. Our mind inclines towards it. And the more we incline, the more we study, the more we practice and come to understand the nature of reality, the mind starts to let go of the samsaric delights and starts to incline towards the unconditioned element. We are beings that are in the process of transformation and evolution. There are these roots of trees, these empty huts. Meditate, because do not delay, or else you will regret it later. This is our instruction to you. Do not delay. The time is now. Or else, if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? Are you hoping for a better opportunity? Hoping to somehow meet the Dhamma in a better way? You've contacted the Dhamma, the instruction has been given. You're intelligent enough to make sense of that instruction. You're diligent and have enough energy to start actually performing the techniques of freeing the mind. Carry on. Fulfill your destiny as a human. Don't delay. Don't be negligent. The last words of the Buddha. Appamadena sampadeta. Strive on with diligence to attain the unattained, to realize the unrealized. Remove defilements from the mind. This is your work. And then, done is what had to be done. There is no more coming to any state of being. Freedom is yours. May it be so.